Welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America. I will be with you today. I am with you today. We'll be with you. I'm with you today live. I will not be with you live tomorrow morning because I will be up in Leesburg, Virginia, preparing for our Stand Awards dinner, which is happening tomorrow night. So pray for us. We have finally reached 0 hour here, and I'm leaving today to head up there. So I will not be with you live tomorrow. I want to remind you, I will be here in Virginia this weekend. I will be preaching at the Called Church, 943 Canal Drive in Chesapeake, Virginia. Services begin at 11 o'clock. We start live streaming about 11:15. So if you're in the area, come on by. We'd love to see you. If you're not in the area and you want to watch it live stream, you know the places you can see it. You can see it on the E.W. Jackson YouTube channel. You can see it on Facebook, E.W. Jackson for America. In fact, I've got a number of Facebook accounts that you can see it at. You can see it on our website, thecall.org, standamerica.us. You can see it on Rumble. Well, really, that's it. That's it. I think that covers the gamut. But if you're in the area, again, come on by. Well, look, there's a lot to talk about, as always, today, because the Trump juggernaut continues to roll. And I'll tell you, one of the things I'm so pleased with is just the absolute energy and vigor with which Donald Trump is prosecuting the presidency. He is a ball of energy, and it's not chaotic. It is directed. It is rational. It is logical. It's frankly, it's brilliant in my view. And right now, of course, he's in the Middle East still, and continuing with this, what I have dubbed economic diplomacy, trying to end conflicts and wars and bring about economic prosperity for our adversaries, to get them to think about how much better their lives and the lives of their people can be if they would move away from the model of conflict and move toward the model of cooperation. And I just think that, again, I think that President Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize. He won't. I doubt that he will, because he's not their kind of person. And the Nobel Peace Prize, as far as I'm concerned, has been, frankly, it's been worthless since they gave it to Barack Obama, because they just gave it to him for nothing. But if it actually had merit, and they were actually being honest and really trying to exalt people for pursuit of peace in the world, they would be looking at Donald Trump right now saying, we got to give Donald Trump the Nobel Peace Prize, because the man, he's perhaps done more than any president in our lifetime, at least. I wasn't alive during World War II, but any president in our lifetime to try to bring peace to the world. So I'm enjoying watching this. In the meantime, the opposition party, the Democrats and the left, continue to do everything they can to disparage him, to discredit him, to obstruct him. Their policies continue to be cult-like. And I want to run through a couple of these instances again, just pointing out the utter irrationality of their behavior. And then I want to get to another point that I think needs to be sort of lifted up and highlighted, but I'm not quite there yet. I want to point out first this Colorado case of this illegal alien teenager who killed a young woman because he was driving 90 miles an hour in a 45 zone. 90 miles an hour in a 45 zone. And he struck this woman, and for all practical purposes, he killed her instantly. They took her to the hospital. She was on life support, and the family realized she was brain dead. She had no chance of having any kind of meaningful life, and that once they unplugged the life support machines that were attached to her body, she immediately succumbed. The prosecutor of this Colombian kid, he's 15 years old, is giving him probation. I kid you not, folks. Probation. Releasing him. He's on the streets. And applying for asylum. You should not even be eligible for asylum if you killed an American. You shouldn't even be eligible. But this Colorado district attorney, I guess he's one of these George Soros type attorneys. Again, folks, this stuff is incredulous. Sometimes it leaves you speechless, breathless, because you think, well, that point, the kid is a juvenile. Of course, he should be placed in a juvenile detention facility. He should be sentenced to a very stiff sentence. I'm not saying he should get life in prison for this because, again, it was reckless. I don't think he got into the car with the intention of killing anybody, so it's not like it was an intentional homicide. But what we call a reckless homicide in some jurisdictions would be defined as killing someone in a circumstance where you knew or should have known that your behavior would lead to someone's death. So it's not, in that sense, they're calling it accidental. It's not in that sense accidental. I mean, that's like walking through a crowd swinging a sledgehammer and then saying, but I didn't mean to kill anybody. If anybody died, it was an accident. Well, obviously, if you're swinging a sledgehammer in a crowd, you ought to know you're going to kill somebody. If you hit somebody in the head with a sledgehammer, you're going to kill them. So you can't say, oh, no, it was an accident. I was just swinging a sledgehammer. Well, you're driving 90 miles an hour in a 45 zone. You ought to know that if you crash into somebody, you're going to kill them. And at that speed, in a 45 zone, which means you're in a residential area, 45 zones usually residential. These are rarely, remote roads where the speed limits would be higher. So you should know that you're likely to have some kind of accident driving at that speed in an area where the speed limit is 45 miles an hour. He's walking. For all practical purposes, he's walking. And apparently, how in the world he is eligible for asylum, I do not know. But this gets me to the point I want to make, that I want to really highlight. I think I've said this in various ways before, but I'm convinced of this. Yeah, I have said it in various ways before, but let me try to really crystallize this. These leftists really do hate Americans. They really do. And it's a weird thing to say in this sense. Well, why would they hate Americans? I mean, we're just living our lives, working and taking care of our families. Why would they hate us? They hate us because they hate the values that we represent. And unlike us as Christians, who can distinguish between hating the ideas that a person embraces or hating the policy, say, for example, that a politician wants to implement, or hating the ideology that somebody adheres to, but we don't hate that person. We still pray for that person, and we still realize that person is redeemable. But you see, because the left is essentially godless, they don't have the ability to make that distinction. And so they transfer their hatred of the ideas that you hold that hatred is transferred directly to you, and they don't only want to destroy the ideas, they want to destroy you as the repository for those ideas. And part of hating Americans is you ignore anything that contributes to the safety and security of the American people. Like you got this kid, if he's willing to drive 90 miles an hour, and he probably doesn't have a license, 15 years old, willing to drive 90 miles an hour in a 45 mile an hour zone, what's next? What will he do next? I mean, that's almost psychopathic. No consideration for the safety or security of other people. But here's a prosecutor who's got a chance to put this kid away, and then, of course, make sure that that kid is deported back to Colombia because he's seeking asylum, 15 years old. What's he need asylum for? Go back to Colombia. It just tells you that not only do they have no regard for the safety and security of the American people, but there is a kind of hatred that they have for us where they enjoy seeing the American people on the back foot, hurt, harmed, made to feel insecure, having our safety threatened. This seems to be what they enjoy. I said it's almost psychopathic or even sadistic. I know these are strong words, folks, but how else do you explain going down to El Salvador repeatedly, trying to get a guy who is an MS-13 gang member, who we know has engaged in human trafficking, who we know has beat his wife, who we know has probably killed people, because to be a member of MS-13, he's probably killed people just to be a part of it, and you want him back in our country? And some senator got up on his haunches yesterday with Kristi Noem. I'm fighting for due process. I mean, give me a break. Were you fighting for due process? Or are you fighting for due process when Americans are killed, raped, robbed by illegal aliens who don't have a right to be here in the first place? Do you stand up and say, wait a minute, we are depriving these Americans of their life, their liberty, and we've got to do something about that? No, never, never. You don't hear them say a word about that. Not a word. In fact, they'll often attack Americans and say, well, Americans commit more crimes than illegal aliens. I mean, that's their response. So it's no big deal that illegal aliens kill Americans, because Americans do that more than illegal. They really do. You know, and it takes me back to Ward Churchill. I think Ward Churchill really captured the zeitgeist of the left, because he thought that all the people who were murdered on 9/11 deserved it. He called them little Nazis. They deserved it. And I think he really captured the zeitgeist of the left. I don't remember, do you, when he said those outrageous things? I don't remember the Democrat Party or the left saying, wait a minute, we denounced that. I don't remember that, do you? No. Silence. Just like they're silent now on things that you would think they would say, whoa, wait a minute, that's going too far. No. So this kid's back out on the street. What if that were your wife? What if that were your daughter that he killed? Or your sister? Or your mother? And this kid walks, and he doesn't even belong in this country. He is an illegal alien, and he just walks. For somebody to do that to an American, to do that to an American family, that to me suggests something more than just disregard. That suggests to me a kind of active, in your face. Take that. Now, I want to pursue that theme. It's still this cult-like behavior, but this is kind of crystallized in in my mind because of other things that we see the left doing. Right now, for example, there's a woman, Sports Illustrated magazine, they're putting her on the cover, the swimsuit cover. Well, she's an American defector. She actually decided that she didn't want to compete for the United States of America. She wanted to compete for Communist China. This is a woman, Eileen Gu. I don't know where the Gu comes from, maybe her husband, because she looks like an American of European ancestry. She doesn't look at all Asian. But she's a freestyle skier, and she is not only skiing for China, but she's actually shilling for China and claiming that China's a wonderful place and denouncing freedom of speech, and it's bizarre. But what does that say? What it says is this woman hates our country. How else could you interpret it? She doesn't want to ski for the United States of America. She wants to ski for Communist China. And Sports Illustrated wants to highlight her. Because, like her, they hate us. And what better way to say in your face than to put, in effect, an American defector on the cover of the magazine? Say, hey, look at her. See these comments that she has made against our own country. For example, justifying China's censorship policies and claiming Chinese citizens have as much freedom as Americans. I kind of like the NBA. I don't know how close the NBA is working with China these days, because they got mad at them when one of the coaches denounced Chinese oppression and torture and incarceration and all of these practices that this communist totalitarian regime perpetrates against its citizens, against its people, because I wouldn't even call them citizens of this abomination. But the residents of China, the people of China, she's justifying it all. In fact, in her social media, she celebrates China. She's an American citizen. What does that tell you? Obviously, they hate us. She hates us. And the fact that Sports Illustrated, who owns Sports Illustrated? Is Sports Illustrated and ESPN Enterprise? I don't know. I hadn't even done any research on that. But whoever owns it, just think about the mindset. Yeah, we're going to put her on the cover. Yeah, this American hater. We're going to put her on the cover. It is sad to think that we have Americans who don't simply disagree with us, but they actually hate us. And they hate our country insofar as our country represents our values, insofar as our country has grown. See, our country has not grown on their values. Our country hasn't grown on the values of collectivism and Marxism and socialism. Our country has grown on the values of individual liberty and private property and capitalism and Judeo-Christian values and principles. That's what's caused our country to become the behemoth that bestrides the world, the greatest nation in the history of mankind. But they don't like any of that because they want a different kind of country and a different kind of values. And you and I stand in the way of that, and therefore they hate us. They don't just disagree with us. They hate us in the same way that a cult is taught to hate the people outside. Now, they may not say it that way, but that's what they mean. Have no association with those people. They're bad people. They're evil. We are the ones who know. They are the ones who don't. Stay away from them. Now, this is another example of this kind of hatred of America, of American values, of American Judeo-Christian values, and what the president likes to call common sense values. You got a trans runner in Pennsylvania. This guy is a senior. He's a guy. They're allowing him to play, the run, I should say, in the 200-meter race. They're allowing him to run against girls. He's running with the girls, okay? His name is Luce Allen, and I don't know. Folks, I get exasperated trying to figure this stuff out, just trying to communicate it, because it really is insane. This guy has won the 200-meter race, and he also won the 4x400-meter relay race 6 times. This is his 6th win of the season. But now get this. Are you ready for this? Overall, this guy is at the bottom of the men. When it comes to his speed, he is at the bottom of the barrel for the men. When he was running with his speed with the men, he's the 4th slowest high school runner in the 200-meter race. 4th slowest. He is almost the slowest runner among the men. And he's beating the women every time. Now, that is not in no way a denigration of women. It is simply, it is conclusive evidence of the difference, the physiological, the biological, the genetic difference between men and women. The physicality of men is so very different from that of women that this is what it produces. A guy who's beating all the women is among the slowest of the men runners, or males. These are really kids, really. He's a senior, he's also almost an adult. When you put this guy into a girls' race, he couldn't beat any guys. He wouldn't even place. But you put him in a race with girls, and suddenly he's champion. You realize the tremendous disservice you are doing to all of these young girls? I dare say it this way, folks. It is an attack. It is an attack on the womanhood of these young girls. It is an attack on them. We don't care how hard you work. We don't care what you do. We don't care what you say. We don't care about your academic or athletic plans. We're going to undermine all of that by sticking a man in the mix who's going to take all of it away from you. Take that. I think we have to stop viewing this as a disagreement and start realizing it for what it is. It is hatred. These people, they hate normality. They hate Judeo-Christian values. They hate all the things that make America who and what, make Americans who we are and make America what it is. They hate it. They hate us, and they hate our country. Because to me, to do that to all these young girls is an act of hatred. It is an act of hatred. You know, I'm not going to say who because I don't want to embarrass anybody, and I don't really know these folks. So I don't want to put them out there. But I was reading an article yesterday about a ministry that is presumably multicultural, but has a pastor who is conservative. And he said, but, you know, I have Democrats in my church, and the Democrats do this and the Democrats do that. And, you know, and I'm trying to show the Republicans how they can better understand the Democrats' perspective, and the Democrats how they can better understand the Republicans' perspective. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't even know how you do that. Because to the extent that, and of course I know not all Republicans are Christians, but to the extent that we're talking about people who truly are Christians, how in the world can you be a Christian and be a part of a party that is full of hatred of everything godly and full of hatred of people who don't agree with them? How can you be part of it and call yourself a Christian? How? How can you be part of a party that believes that killing an unborn baby is a thing to be celebrated? How can you be part of a party that believes that talking to 3, 4, 5-year-olds and on up about their sexuality without the permission of the parents, to the point where you call them by a different name and use different pronouns and set them up for some kind of transition? How can you be a part of a party that wants to do that and call yourself a Christian? Look, I'm not saying that there aren't Christians who are members of the Democrat Party. But I'll tell you one thing, if those Christians who are members of the Democrat Party are in a spiritually backslidden condition and don't know it, because if they really knew it, they would follow, I believe it's 2 Corinthians chapter 6, come out from among them and be separate and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. In fact, let's just go there, because to me, I think, I understand the motivation, by the way. I really do. Because you want to grow your church. And you want to have as many people in there as you can get. I certainly feel that way. But I believe this, what you compromise to get, you have to compromise to keep. And if your ministry is built on compromise, it can never be pleasing to God. Here it is, 2 Corinthians chapter 6, beginning at verse 14. It says, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness? I mean, do these Democrats who are claim to be Christians, have they ever read this? What fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness or iniquity or sin? So how can you be in fellowship with people who believe that killing an unborn baby is okay? How can you be in fellowship with people who believe that you can be born in the wrong body and it's okay to mutilate a young boy, cut off his genitalia? It's okay to cut off the breasts of a young girl. It's okay to block puberty on a child who is growing and developing. It's okay to do all this because, after all, you have concluded that they were born in the wrong body. Which is rank rebellion against everything the Bible teaches. It says, and what communion has light with darkness, and what accord has Christ with Belial? You know, what we really have, folks, if you want to just take a strictly biblical approach to this, what we really have is that the Democrat Party has really become the party of Baal worship. Because all this sexual stuff, all of that was all Baal worship. Ashtoreth was supposed to be the consort of Baal, and the statues of Ashtoreth were sexually depraved, because part of the whole point of Baal was sexual promiscuity, which is why Jezebel and other followers of Baal turned God's temple into a brothel and put male and female prostitutes in the temple, so you could go into the temple and you give an offering, and then you have homosexual or heterosexual, but you have homosexual, the homosexuals set up booths where you could have homosexual sex in the temple as an offering to Baal. The Democrat Party is nothing but the party of Baal today. Just a modern version of the party of Baal. It says, or what part has a believer with an unbeliever? And what agreement has the temple of God with idols? For you are the temple of the living God, and God has said, I will dwell in them and walk among them. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Therefore, come out from among them and be separate, says the Lord. Do not touch what is unclean, and I will receive you. I will be a father to you, and you shall be my sons and daughters, says the Lord Almighty. Therefore, come out from among those Democrats and be separate, says the Lord. Do not touch what is unclean. Because the Democrat Party is an unclean thing. It is. It is an unclean thing. Now, again, Facebook and YouTube, don't censor me. Don't censor me. Because what I'm saying is true from a biblical perspective, and when you censor me, you are violating the spirit of the First Amendment, and you are censoring me from espousing my sincerely held religious beliefs based upon the teaching of the Word of the living God. So stop it. Stop shadow banning me too. I probably have millions of viewers right now, but you know, they obviously they don't want that. Got these people saying a whole bunch of nothing with millions of viewers. And I'm giving you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. But that's again, they don't just disagree with us, folks. They hate us. We don't hate them. So let me just say, nothing I am saying is said with the intention, implied or expressed, of trying to create violence, trying to create hatred, trying to create division. I'm simply pointing out the division that is already there. And, you know, Jesus himself made clear, you know, this idea, look, I really believe in American unity. And for me, American unity means unifying around the Judeo-Christian values and principles upon which this nation was founded and which have been the bulwark for our success as a nation. I'm not interested in trying to unify with people who reject those values. In fact, I would suggest this, and I mean this very sincerely. I think that the Democrats ought to do what this woman has done. Go live in communist China. I won't be mad at you. I think, you know, you'll have found a home. This is what you really want. You really want Marxism and socialism and totalitarianism. Go there. You can have all the censorship you want, all the abortion you want. Because they believe in it very strongly in China. Of course, it's hurt their population, and hurt their growth because, you know, the problem that they're having is that their population is aging, and they were basically limiting the number of young people who could come and replace the elders, and now they've got a kind of social crisis because Chinese people are aging out. And so I don't know whether, those policies are still in place or not. But there's no question about this. Go to China, you can have all the government control you want. You can have it till it's coming out of your ears. Or any other country. I mean, sincerely, folks, why stay in a country you hate with people who you hate, who hold values that you hate? I mean, why do it? Now, they could say to me, well, why don't you leave? Because I love America, and I love the values upon which our country was built. I'm not interested in subverting them. I'm interested in restoring them. So that's why I'm not leaving. So it doesn't matter to me who gets elected president or anywhere else. I'm not leaving my country. I love my country. I'm going to continue to fight for the values that I know made this country. As I said, and those values weren't collectivist, Marxist, socialist, communist values. They weren't. But the Democrat Party, that's what they want to turn them into. Now, let me close by talking about this. We're back to this issue of the plane that Qatar wants to give to the president for as a replacement for Air Force One, and I did confirm what I told you yesterday, which is it had to first be turned over to the Defense Department. And I think the Air Force is the one is the department that would do it to tool it up to make it Air Force One worthy. Okay, because there are a lot of things in Air Force One that you and I don't even know anything about because it's all classified. Because that plane is designed to protect the President of the United States and to transport him where he needs to go. And then, because it would only be a temporary Air Force One, because the ones that we're waiting for have been held up by Boeing's incompetence, recalcitrance. I don't know what the problem is with Boeing, but I see them over making deals with Qatar for over 200 airplanes. I'm thinking to myself, they need to build the ones that they're scheduled to build for America, and they need to start building these planes right. Because every now when I get into a plane, if I know it's a Boeing, I've got questions. Because I know that they have really done an incompetent job building a lot of these airplanes, and these planes falling apart in the air and all that. But that aside, they're making a big deal of this, and they went out of their way to justify Hunter Biden's. I mean, taking money hand over fist, gifts, and we all know that those gifts were in behalf of his father. Come on. Deals, billion-dollar deals, consulting contracts, on board contracts, $1 million a year. And Hunter Biden made clear in his communications on his computer that he had to give his father a cut of all that. Some of it was for the big guy. But what did the media say? Nothing. Nothing you found suggests any wrongdoing on the part of Joe Biden. I mean, are you kidding me? Do you think if Donald Trump had behaved in a similar fashion, they would be saying, well, nothing you've done suggests any wrongdoing on Donald Trump's part? I mean, these people, their hypocrisy knows no bounds. And what about Hillary Clinton? Remember the Clinton Library? I mean, when she was at the State Department, they were raising money for the Clinton Library. And she was doing deals and making arrangements with nations that were pouring money into their library. I mean, it was quite obvious that they were buying influence with the Secretary of State. Quite obvious. The media never said a word about it. Not a mumbling word. But now all of a sudden, an airplane with a particular purpose that will be used by President Trump and then apparently will be donated to his library for display, because it's not a permanent fix. It won't be a permanent Air Force One. I thought it might be, but it won't be that, because they're going to continue to wait to get the new Air Force Ones that are being built by Boeing. And remember, they don't build just one. They build multiples of these airplanes because the president needs to have one at his disposal at all times. And if one has got problems, it needs repairs, then he just jumps into the other one. Or I don't know how many there are. I think maybe just two, but there might be more. But again, a lot of this stuff is classified and we don't know because that's necessary in order to make sure that the president of the United States is protected. You don't want people knowing about his plane, how many he has, where they are, and all that. I mean, you want that information as classified as it can possibly be for the security of the president of the United States. But all of a sudden, they're buying the presidency. It's just, and Eric Swalwell at a hearing yesterday was questioning Kristi Noem about this picture of Abrego Garcia with MS 13 above his knuckles, which I think was meant to define what the images on his fingers meant. And he was asking, he said to her, I've got several young children and I've got a BS meter, blah, 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 blah. And, I wish he had said, well, apparently it wasn't working when you were sleeping with your Chinese spy girlfriend. Interesting that you seem to have developed one now. But just as you were wrong then, you're wrong now. It's amazing. Again, sleeping with a woman who was a Chinese spy, I wouldn't trust Eric Swalwell as far as I could throw him. As far as I'm concerned, the man's a traitor to the country. Because I think that I think just like this woman who's skiing for China, I think that they're enamored of communism. They're enamored of that system. I think that's what they really want for our country. And they know we're not going for it. They know we are absolutely not going for it. And these people who will use anything. I mean, folks, the president of the United States is serving our country and gaining victory after victory for the American people, and they hate him for it. They hate him for it. And I've said this before, it's Donald Trump's not their ultimate target. We are. Because you see, Donald Trump's going to go. I mean, he's going to serve 4 years as president, and then he's going to move on. He'll probably still be a force to reckon with in our country, undoubtedly, but he's going to move on from the presidency. He can't stay there forever. But you and I, the American people who believe in our country, the patriots all over this land, who stand up for that flag and get teary-eyed at the playing of the national anthem and the sacrifices of our brave men and women in uniform and all that they've done to help secure our freedom. We are the ones that they ultimately want to get at. They want to silence us. They want to limit us. They want to convert us. They want to control us. They want to step between us and our children. Because they really do hate us and what we stand for. Again, from a biblical perspective, this is not hard to fathom. Jesus made this clear. I could quote it, but I'm going to read it to you. Jesus made clear that the world would hate us because it hates him. Jesus said in John 15, verse 18, he said, if the world hates you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. You know that it hated me before it hated you. So you see, I'm not off on some flight of fancy when I say they hate us, because from a biblical perspective, Jesus said, yes, they do. You know, when I was running for lieutenant governor and won the nomination, of course, I remember talking to my campaign manager, a very capable young man who's gone on to do other things, but a very capable young man. And we were talking about the response of the press and the way they're just beating me and beating me and beating me and investigating me and looking at my background, trying to find ways that they could undermine me and discredit me. And he said to me, he said, you know, we were having a discussion about handling the press. He said to me, you know, Bishop, I don't think you understand. I said, understand what? He said, they hate you. And, you know, I kind of reared back and thought, man, that's pretty strong. He said, no. He said, they hate you. They want to destroy you. And, you know, I had to let that settle in for a while, and I realized he was absolutely right. Then I got to thinking about the ways they had covered me and the things they had done against me and the investigations. I told you all, they went to my hometown trying to prove that my foster home had an indoor toilet because I said it didn't. And I took a bath every Saturday night in a galvanized tub, which is exactly what we did. They went to Boston to try to prove that I was never a chaplain for the Boston Red Sox. They went to Harvard Divinity School, try to prove I never attended Harvard Divinity School. Everything I said about my background was absolutely true. Nothing whatsoever was embellished, but they tried to prove that I was embellishing my background. And then, for example, when they couldn't find the nonprofit that managed the chaplaincy program, because again, I was not an employee for the Red Sox. It was a nonprofit that recruited me to preach for the Red Sox at their home games. So they weren't going to find me on any roster they're going back to some of the players who were there when I was there, then they would have known me because, you know, when Oil Can Boyd was there when I first started my chaplaincy. The Rocket was there when I first started. Mo Vaughn was there when I first started. And I did that for 4 or 5 years, but they couldn't find any record of the Red Sox. So, you know what they said? They said, we can find no record whatsoever of E.W. Jackson ever having been a chaplain for the Red Sox. I mean, it's like, so they couldn't prove I hadn't been, but since they couldn't prove I was, they stated the negative. We find no record. We find no so basically they're calling me a lie. I mean, and he said, they hate you. And folks, I have to tell you exactly what my campaign manager at that time told me. I'm telling you. They hate you. They hate you. It's sad. But again, I say these things to help us understand what we are dealing with and then to know how to address it. So this is not just a matter of disagreement. And I think, you know, pastors who have pastors who are born again believers, because not all pastors are, pastors who actually know God, who have Democrats in leadership roles in their church, in my view, are making a very, very, very big mistake. Because I just don't see how you can, as I just read it to you in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, beginning at verse 14, I don't see how you can be that unequally yoked together and in that fellowship with idolatry and then serve effectively and faithfully and loyally as a disciple of Jesus Christ. To me, it is impossible. It is impossible. Love these people. Pray for them. treat them with respect, but you cannot trust them. You can't. Because they are of their father, the devil. Even if they claim to be Christians and they've attached themselves. I know I'm way over my time, but I got to tell you this story. First time I decided I was going to run for something in Virginia, I went and talked to a friend of mine. I won't give the name because it would just, I don't want to stir up mess. But I talked to a friend of mine, somebody who I thought was a friend. Say, I'm going to run. And felt good about them, I'm going to run, blah, 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 blah. A fellow Christian. I'm going to run as a Republican. And folks, I'm telling you, it was as if the veil came off, the horns came out, the demonic expression came forth, and I was looking at a different person. I'm serious. That person turned on me. Their family turned on me. We have been very friendly. We weren't close friends, but been very, very friendly. And like I said, I had a good relationship. They all turned on me, wouldn't speak to me, wouldn't even look at me. I mean, it was as if I lifted the veil, and what was behind it was demonic. And I thought I was dealing with a Christian. Just saying. Well, look, thank you all for your prayers. Thank you for your support. We're holding our dinner tomorrow night. I will be back with you, of course, next week. But tune in tomorrow because I'll have something for you tomorrow, a best of for tomorrow, and be praying for us because we're going to do our Stand Awards dinner tomorrow night, the biggest event of our year and the biggest fundraiser of the year. So be praying for us that the Lord will use it magnificently to help our organization to continue to move forward in fulfilling the mission that God has given us of bringing Americans together as one nation under God across all racial and cultural lines to uphold, preserve, defend our Judeo-Christian values and principles, our families, our free market economy, our constitutionally limited form of government so that individual liberty remains the order of the day in the United States of America. So you know what to do. Stand up, step up, speak up, and refuse to back up because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit because we are on God's side. God bless everybody.